Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP Community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from ONSIP.com, and you can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about ZipDX.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by Bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from Voxbone.com.
Welcome everybody to VUC number 599 for June 24th, 2016. We will have Twilio featuring Billy Chia and others, but before we get into that, we need to make mention of Astracon. Digium, who are a VUC sponsor, are doing Astracon, the annual Asterisk Users Convention and Expo, September 27th through 29th. In the Renaissance Glendale Hotel and Spa in Glendale, Arizona. You will probably see a lot of VUC regulars there. If you work at all with IP telephony and Astra specifically, we encourage you to pay them a visit. And now on to Randy.
All right, I don't have all that much to say as usual, but I'm going to try to find myself. Here we go. Finding myself. We'll pull the focus over to me. And yes, well, Billy, we know you from a long, long time. And as a result, I'm not going to ask you how you got interested in technology. I'm going to ask Anna, because Annie. And I'm trying to find my mouse, which has been flaking out, and it got lost. So I'm going to have to, yes, thank you, James. My mouse is dying. And I can't turn the focus over without it. But let's get this happening before we ask Annie. Sorry about this. Well, we've just plagued with technical problems. All right. Annie, I've got you on the focus now. Thank you for joining us and welcome. What was the story of how you got interested in technology, please?
Sure. So I'm originally from Mexico City, and I've always liked math and science, so that's how I decided to study my undergrad in Mexico in something that was called telematics engineering, which was a combination of telecommunications and information technology. From there, I was just like, okay, I think I want to work in the U.S., something in technology area, so I'm like, let me go do a double E in the U.S. at Stanford. So I went into that, and then from there, I just jumped from company to company. So I went to Lucent Technologies, to Teleca, that got acquired by Lucent, to Acme Packet, which builds session border controllers. Then that got acquired by Oracle, and now I'm at Twilio. So I've definitely gotten a pretty good ride, I have to say.
And it is. That's a brilliant thing. Tell me before we move over to Billy, and he's going to kind of direct this thing, what is your favorite aspect of all this? I mean, obviously Twilio now, but what area of technology is the most exciting to you?
So for me, it's always been telecommunications. I love the fact that you helped people communicate with one another. You help providers build their own communications network. And the fact that it's an ever-changing technology. You'll never get bored because there's always something new that comes along. You
know, that's 100% true because I've been retired for a couple of years and I'm still in this thing. We're going to turn it over to, thank you, Annie, and we're going to turn it over to Billy, and Billy's going to kind of lead the session from the Twilio side. By the way, of course, and James and Michael and Andy will join me in the great congratulations of you folks. Twilio has done amazing things, and I think today was I don't know how to say this, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. James. James is taken aback.
Yeah, there we are. You caught me unawares then.
Yes.
Keep on doing that, don't you?
Yes.
Very, very good news. Exciting news about Twilio's share launch, raising roughly $1 billion valuation. And it's good for all of us in this industry. So thank you, Twilio.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Billy, again, applause and congratulations to everybody. Billy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can lead the session.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Randy. just very happy to be at Twilion, to be at Twilio, enjoy being on the show. So we're really excited today to talk about just some new products and some new enhancements that we've shipped recently. And so without further ado, let me just see if I can share out a screen.
This is a good bit. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is that coming through for everybody?
Perfect.
Slides?
That's looking good.
Excellent. So, so we're very happy to be here to talk about Twilio. And for the folks who don't know, Twilio is a communications platform that enables businesses and developers to add communications to any application or workflow via software APIs. So we enable businesses and developers to embed communications via APIs and SDKs to add communications to any application or any workflow. And so it's a lot of fun. We love what we get to do, and we've recently shipped some new products. So a milestone that we just hit recently is that we now have over 1 million developer accounts. So this was very exciting. We announced this at our Signal conference last month, that we hit 1 million developer accounts, and just a lot of good news. So some recent product shifts. Historically, what Twilio is probably most well known for is our SMS API. And so when you take an Uber ride and you receive an SMS that your Uber driver has arrived, Twilio sends that SMS, and so we make it very easy for businesses. We handle all of the abstraction for all the telecommunications and all of the global relationships with the carriers. But in addition to SMS, we have many, many products. We do IP chat, we do voice, we do video. So we have many, many products, and these are the ones that we did some recent enhancements to that we would love to talk about today and take Q&A on. So four products that we did we recently announced Notify, which is a notifications product. We'll talk about that. Our add-ons Marketplace, Programmable Wireless, and some new enhancements to SIP trunking. So this is what we'd love to share with everyone today, and take some questions. So Twilio Notify is a new product we just announced into developer preview. So this is not generally available to everybody, but you can request access to it. It's a brand new product, and we've actually gotten a tremendous response of early access requests. Been very healthy. So, and one of the things I get to do at Twilio is work with some of those early customers who request access, and we grant access to early products. So Twilio Notify is a new product that we have announced that is a single API that allows you to orchestrate notifications over SMS, push, and messaging apps. And so this is a layer of intelligence that sits above the transport. So essentially, for years and years, many of our customers have done notifications use cases, and especially over SMS. And as we've expanded our amount of transports over push notifications, over different types of messaging apps, this is what we've heard over and over and over again from our customers, a type of product that they've wanted. And the way the story generally tends to come is that the messaging landscape is just expanding and becoming more and more complex every single day. And so we see this type of pattern often, where our customers will enable SMS, and typically they'll start communicating with customers over SMS. And they'll send SMS messages, and they have these are customers that opt in and want to be up to date and want to get notifications of what's happening. So they're in the know, right? And then the customer will say download the app. Often you can send an SMS to say to download the app, and so then they download the business's app, and so they disable SMS and enable push notifications. But then a really complex set of states happens, right? So sometimes the customer will, or the end user will enable push notifications or disable push notifications. Sometimes they get a new phone and they don't install the new app on the new phone. There's any variant of states where the customer now who wants information about that business is not getting information because they were on a channel and you stopped sending over that channel and now you started a new channel, but that new channel was not necessarily as reliable or didn't function in the same way. So now you've completely lost connection with that customer, even though that they wanted to stay in the know. In addition to this, we see that pattern over and over again. In addition to this, the messaging landscape has just continued to become more and more complicated, where folks are not just using SMS or not just using apps. There's any number of applications that people will use, Viber, WeChat, on and on and on. All of these types of messaging apps, as these are ones that you use every day. And so, what do businesses do when they try to engage with this notifications? It's very, very hard. So this is a complaint we hear from our customers, is that their customers, right? They want to reach their customers and on these channels, but it's a complicated story because in order to be in those places, you have to do custom integration with all of those different channels, and then it's very hard to figure out which is the right one that the customer wants to receive the notification on, right? So people can get overwhelmed with too many notifications, and as we all know, we probably all shut off our notifications on our phone when we get harassed. So you have to do it in a way that's intelligent. You have to send notifications in a way that is targeted. So these were problems that we sought out to solve. As we heard these questions coming in from our customers, these are problems we sought out to solve. So we announced an orchestration API. And so what this API does with Notify, Twilio Notify, is it allows you to do three things: user segmentation, smarter orchestrations, and send multi-channel messaging. So in order to solve these problems for our customers, the first thing that we saw was the customers wanted to do user segmentation. So this is even over any single channel. If you want to send an SMS to one user, you send one API call. If you want to send to 1 million users, you have to send 1 million API calls to send all of those SMS messages. So we said there has to be an easier way to do this. So we designed user segmentation via tags in the Notify API. This allows you to tag users. For example, you could say, I have a list of users, and you could tag them as VUC. And then you could send one API call to your VUC segment, and that will notify everybody via SMS or the preferred channel. So that ability to do user segmentation is something that we've put into this intelligence API, this layer above the transports. The smart orchestrations, I think, is what has been the most exciting and what customers are very happy about, which is that Twilio actually handles the logic, right? And so this is the idea that I might at times reach out via SMS, but if it doesn't get acknowledged or if that SMS doesn't get delivered, then I want to go over a different channel. So this is another, there are different types of notifications. So sometimes if you're getting a notification from your video game that, your pod has upgraded and you're ready to collect more gold, that's probably not the most urgent notification. But oftentimes for other business use cases, from your bank or especially from your airlines, this is where your notification is very, very urgent. So we see different scenarios. We see scenarios where people want to receive a notification on one channel, and then if that doesn't work, then go to a different one. This is the type of fallback scenario. So this could be an important notification that you want to receive. So if let's say you're riding on a train or you're in some place with poor connectivity, if you don't receive the push notification, then it can back up to SMS or a more reliable channel, and that type of fallback sends that important notification.
Yeah, Billy, can I just jump in
Oh, yeah.
there? Very quick
Absolutely.
question. In order for this to work properly, you have to have some kind of real-time presence notification, so you know which channel to push the message down. Is that built into your API?
Right, exactly. So this product is exposed via a REST API that you send out the REST call to send the notifications, and then also SDKs that you embed into your application. So the SDKs allow you to know, did you receive a push notification or not, this type of feedback channel. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, but the question is, do you have visibility of whether a user is present on a messaging channel or not?
Gotcha. Yes. So we expose this via several different SDKs, which is what we call reachability, and the idea is if you have the Twilio SDK embedded into the application and you have the application open, then we know that, okay, we have a WebSocket open to that application, and that application is reachable. And so at that time, you would probably want to send like an in-app message, but another state might be that the app is background, or the app is not reachable. So then you would go over a different channel, say push or SMS. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it would be good to see some working examples. Have you got a demo you can show us a little bit later?
I didn't prep a demo for today. So the products that we are talking about today are.
No better coming on here without a demo.
I know, of course. You're like, I should have known. James wants the demo. So we did do live demos at our Signal conference where we used. So you can actually, I'll pop up the video. I'll put it into the IRC chat. But our CEO Jeff actually, or no, I'm sorry, our VP of product Pat, he actually wrote code from the stage and sent a notification to everybody in the conference via this new API. So we demoed some of the functionality. I can talk through some of the other slides, and we can definitely do some more Q&A.
Okay.
The last component here, of course, is that it is multi-channel, and so this was the major pain point that we saw, that in order to orchestrate over messaging apps, over SMS, over push notifications, all of these different channels, that was a major pain point for our customers. So we abstracted that into one SDK, into one API to be able to send over all of those disparate channels. So these are, like I said, these are use cases that are core to Twilio. We see all of these today: two-factor authentication, service alerts. I talked about Uber. You get arrival alerts, but this could be appointment reminders from your bank or your airlines. Service alerts. We see a lot of marketplaces apps when your food is going to be delivered, or to engage. All of these types of notifications use cases are what we've designed Notify for. So if anyone in the audience is interested, as I said, this is an early access product. It's not generally available, but if you go to twilio.com/notify, and I wonder if I can pop this one up, twilio.com/notify, and just showing the audience here, depending on my network connection. So if you just head over to twilio.com/notify and scroll on down, there is a button that allows you to request access. And in the request access form, anybody in the audience today, if you put into your use case, if you mention that, hey, I saw the VUC podcast, I would love to get access, I'll be checking this over the next couple of days. And if you just mention that you saw us on the VUC, I'll be sure to get you early access. So closed off to most folks, but we want to enable that for the audience and the community that is watching today. So that is Twilio Notify. The other next phase of composability that we've announced is Twilio add-ons. So another pain point that we saw with our customers is that they wanted to use Twilio together with other APIs, and again, this becomes very, very complicated, because in order to do this, in order to do a partnering, let's say you have an SMS message come in, and then you want to do, say, sentiment analysis with something like IBM Watson. You have to go and track down who are all of the other companies that do sentiment analysis. You have to figure out how to integrate their API. It may or may not be different than Twilio. And so we have recently launched this marketplace that allows partners to publish their APIs and publish their integrations to Twilio, and then also make them discoverable to end customers, to developers and businesses, so that they can go into the Twilio console and with one click enable an API. And so this is the path I was talking about. You had to, first of all, discover the options, then you had to vet a new vendor, then you had to figure out some type of separate billing and separate setup than what you had with Twilio. You had to learn the API. There might be different documentation, different things to do, build in new authentication models. All of these we saw were pain points that we wanted to make much, much easier. So with our marketplace, what we have is a vetted catalog of partners that is built through Twilio. And so this makes it much easier to discover new APIs and discover new features, rather than having to go out and search the entire breadth of everything that's out there and figure out what works well with Twilio, what doesn't. We just have a vetted catalog. So for end customers, makes it very easy to discover. It's a one-click install. And for vendors, we found it for partners, they've really liked this because it has expanded their reach, and folks are already using Twilio, but we've now are exposing this through a new layer that makes it very, very simple. So in our initial launch, we have 20 add-ons that are available today. Now, just like Notify, just like Wireless, some of our other products that we're talking about today, some of these are available today. If you log into Twilio today, you can actually one-click and install some of these add-ons. We have about 8 or so that we are calling preview. So again, if you log into the Twilio console and there is an add-on that is in preview state, you can request access to that add-on. Again, mention that you saw us on the VUC, and we're keeping track of that inbound stream. So as new functionality is enabled, we are exposing it. So today we're ramping up as we get more and more. I think we launched with 18. We've added 2 more. So the different types of add-ons today are lookup add-ons. So these are help you with phone number lookup. This is like White Pages Pro, when we have a lookup API that gives you some information, but what this does is allows you to take a phone number and get additional information about that customer. We have compliance add-ons that will tell you, can I text message this customer? Like as I mentioned, sentiment analysis. So we've got messaging add-ons. The recording add-ons are the ones that are not available strictly today in the console. But again, if you request the early access, let us know that you saw it on VUC. If you are interested in trying those out, we would love to connect with you and get your feedback on how this new one-click experience is working out for you. And if you would like to partner with Twilio, we would also be interested in that in order to add you into our marketplace. So the way that we've done this is it's a revenue split of 75-25. So it just makes it very, very simple that we do the one-click installation, and then customers that already have a relationship with Twilio with our pay-as-you-go model of pricing can just continue that single billing model, and their procurement teams have something that's very simple and very easy to get started with our marketplace. So that is available today. If you want more information there, you can go to twilio.com/marketplace. And with that, what I would love to do is hand it over to Evan to talk a little bit about Twilio Programmable Wireless. If Evan is on the call.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, I hadn't introduced myself yet. My name is Evan Kumek. I'm a product manager at Twilio, and I've been working on the programmable wireless product, and very excited to be here to talk to you guys about it today. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you, Billy, to drive my slides for me. I hope that's not,
not a problem.
Too much of a problem. So let's just start with a really, really quick introduction to Twilio Wireless and programmable wireless in a few sentences, which is cellular data, SMS, and voice for connected devices. So essentially, Twilio is providing APIs that allow developers to provision or order, set up, activate, deactivate devices that connect to the internet or to cellular voice and data messaging networks via cellular, via SIM card-based connections at this point in time. I'm going to take me to my next slide, Billy. Great. And for some reason, I've gotten Annie in focus. It's interesting.
We're seeing the slides.
Really
We're seeing the slides with no problem, so don't worry.
Okay, great. So the problem that we're really trying to solve here is how do we bring cellular connectivity to developers and to builders in the same way that we sort of opened up historically the voice and messaging networks of the world to developers. That is to say, in a way that doesn't require large commitments, doesn't require bulk orders or large upfront orders and associated payments, doesn't require complicated one-off contracts and pricing negotiations, just in a way that essentially fits the Twilio model. And the Twilio model is, I want to start experimenting with one phone number or one device or one message, and I want to scale it up, and I want to do 1 million messages a month or make 1 million phone calls a month, or in this case, have 1 million connected devices deployed. And we want that experience to be really seamless. So whether again it's the first device that you're ordering or the millionth device that you're setting up, that experience should feel continuous and feel as you would expect it to in the Twilio world. So this is sort of the goal here, and we believe that this is quite different to the way that cellular communications typically works now, and even in our own experience of when we went out to try and sort of build this product, and the experience of just working with cellular carriers and seeing how they work and how opaque the pricing is. And a lot of these other cellular providers for enterprise or for IoT, you can spend days just trying to figure out how much you're going to pay for a solution. And it's really counter to how Twilio works. So we want everything to just be exactly like our other products are, where you show up at the website, the pricing's right there, everything's very transparent, and it's very obvious what it's going to cost you to not only develop your product, but to ship your product and maintain your product in production. Let's go one more. Great. So that leads us to what it is that we're actually shipping. So we're shipping programmable wireless APIs for, like I mentioned, for SIM card ordering, for provisioning devices, managing devices, for sending low energy, sending essentially machine-to-machine SMS commands to and from messages. We also give you a fully programmable voice and messaging stack. So everything that you can do with TWIML right now for voice calling and for SMS, you'll be able to do on the wireless SIM cards as well. But in essentially a more powerful way, because we're actually in the path of that voice and messaging traffic. So we can, any voice call, for instance, that's being made out from the device, we can get in the way of, and we can ask you how you would like to route it. So we can express to you what the intent is of the user that's got that SIM card in their device that's trying to make the call. And on the server side, when you're building your software, you may choose to fulfill their intent exactly as they expressed it, or you may choose to do something a little different. So you may choose to instead say, like, for instance, hey, you're not allowed to call that number, or you're not allowed to call that number at this time of day, or you are allowed to call that number, but I'm going to set your caller ID to something very specific. So we give you kind of full programmable control over that, over the existing voice and messaging that exists on that device. And of course, everything is self-service, usage-based billing, pay only for what you use, and with fairly aggressive volume pricing tiers built in from the start. Now, the interesting thing I think about wireless, and something we're getting quite a bit of questions about, is what is this for? And I think that certainly there's a little bit of hypothesis involved here as it pertains to the Internet of Things and cellular. So there's certainly, excuse me, when we talk about the Internet of Things, there's lots of different connection modalities that exist. And the connection modalities that are being used are very different for devices, for instance, that run in the home versus devices that run in, say, an industrial context or something like that. And I think things are still playing out, and we're still sort of discovering how the market will settle out there. But there's certainly a lot of things on the IoT side where we think that cellular is immediately useful. So I mentioned industrial use cases, things like fleet management, automotive. Automotive is probably the biggest individual cellular use case for IoT right now. There's environmental monitoring, surveillance. There's a whole bunch of use cases. There's also medical use cases. There's digital signage. There's a lot of use cases where even where Wi-Fi is available, if the there's two angles here. If the connection itself is valuable enough that you need it to never go down, then it makes a lot of sense to have a cellular backup, as long as that cellular connection is priced appropriately. But then there's also other cases where you may have a connection modality that's available, like Wi-Fi, but the cost of going out and actually doing maintenance on that device, if the Wi-Fi should stop working, is high enough that it makes sense to have a cellular backup so that you can actually just log into that device and fix the Wi-Fi connection, essentially. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of the other use cases that I just mentioned where Wi-Fi isn't available or isn't desirable, and there's cellular really is the best primary connection there. And those are all the things I mentioned so far are really IoT centric. We also think that there's another complete class of use cases, and it's written on the slide as enterprise communications, but really what we think we will see here is developers building more tightly controlled ecosystems or applications or versions of a typical communication device, a primary communication device. So Twilio is not interested in and we're not pursuing this notion of, oh, I'm going to go sell every consumer on the street a cellular plan. It just doesn't make sense. It's not really what we're setting out to do at all. But for a particular business, it might make sense to write software that allows you to have domain-specific or in some other way enterprise-specific communications devices that can be controlled programmatically through our APIs. So you may want to give out a communications device where the messaging or the voice components of that can be controlled in such a way that it drives your business use case better than just a very general purpose connectivity solution would. Next slide, Billy. Awesome. So this is our pricing, and I should say we've initially launched this product in the US. We partnered with T-Mobile, and we're super happy to be partnered with them. They're a fantastic carrier here in the US. We are not long-term, certainly not limited to the US market. We do have plans to very quickly move into other markets as soon as we can through a combination of things like roaming and local agreements. We really want to build a global product in the same way that we've built a global product with our traditional voice and messaging product lines. The pricing I'll go through really quickly. So on our website we have this notion that you pay $5 for a SIM. This is actually not exhaustively true. The first SIM would be $5. We're currently, one of the things that we're building, and one of the reasons that this product is not in generally available beta yet, is we're building our supply chain for SIMs in the US. So we're figuring out at what level of SIM ordering do price breaks come in and things like that. But I can say that I would expect for people ordering SIM cards to pay between $1 and $5, depending on how many that they're ordering. And that actually just gives you the physical SIM card. I have a few sitting here. It gives you something that looks like this. And that then goes into your device, whatever it is you're building, whether it's none of this is planned, by the way, I just happen to have all this stuff on my desk, whether it's something like this, like a particle electron IoT-powered device, or whether it's potentially something like this, the Kindle e-reader that has the SIM card in it. But that just gives you one SIM card to put into that device. From there, you choose the data metering plan that you would like that SIM card to exist on. And if you're building something like this, most IoT devices that are using data, particularly these cellular IoT devices, use less than 5 megabytes of data a month. So it's really a difference in mind frame from how we've been thinking about data over the past 5 to 10 years as our smartphones have gotten more hungry and we start to think about data usage in terms of gigabytes and then tens of gigabytes. For these connected sensor actuator style devices, we're typically talking less than 5 megabytes a month. So we have one data metering plan where all of the usage across all of your devices is pulled together, and then you pay per megabyte. And you pay also for per connected device per month. And the starting prices, and again on our website we have our scale prices listed, but our starting prices are $2 per active SIM per month and 10 cents a megabyte. But this comes down fairly aggressively. I mean, to give you a good example of sort of maybe a common IoT deployment, and I may get this wrong, but if you had, say, like 100,000 devices connected and they were using 1 or 2 megabytes each a month, you're going to be looking at paying like around about 35 cents or 40 cents, I think, off the top of my head, per connected device per month, which starts to make it pretty easy to build business cases for different types of connected devices, and that's really our goal. On the flip side, if you're shipping something that looks more like a traditional communications device, you probably want a lot more data usage than that, and you probably want a lot more data usage per device. And so the way that that's being priced is more like something that you might see if you were just buying an individual cell phone plan, which is where for each device you pay $25 a month. That gives you a gigabyte of data, and then it's $15 for each additional 1 gigabyte increment after that. And that's metered per SIM. So that the biggest difference there is that one of them is metered per SIM, and the other one is metered across your entire account. Voice SMS are actually priced the same as our regular voice and SMS, so it makes no real difference that they're going over wireless. The only variation to our regular pricing is that we don't differentiate between mobile originated and mobile terminated because of it just didn't make sense to necessarily charge you more to send something to your Twilio wireless device than it did to receive something from your Twilio wireless device when they're both being provided by Twilio. And then we have this other.
So you're charging to both send and receive messages. So if you receive a message, you get charged for that?
So the messaging stack works very similarly to our current messaging stack, where every sort of flow has two parts. So let's think about it this way. So let's say you wanted to have a wireless device, and you wanted that device to have lots of different phone numbers on it for whatever reason. Like this is a sales type use case, and this person should have phone numbers in every state in the US, and so that they can appear local in every market or every city in the US. When a message comes in on one of those numbers, those are normal Twilio numbers, so that's it's sort of unrelated to the Twilio wireless product. You could look at that incoming message, and you can say, I want to send that message down to this device. The device itself has no notion that it's associated with these 50 phone numbers. All it knows is that it's receiving a message from the Twilio cloud. And you can actually, at that point, you could choose to set essentially the sender ID that's going to show up on the phone as well. When the person, now at that point, you've paid for the standard incoming rate for a message on Twilio, and that's how Twilio's pricing has always worked. We have an incoming message rate on our phone numbers. You would also then pay to actually deliver that message down to the device, and that would be the 0.0075. So historically in Twilio, if you wanted to create that type of interaction, you would receive a message into the Twilio cloud, and then you would send it out to another phone number, which would represent the cell phone of a user. But in this case, you're not sending it to their phone number, you're just sending it straight down to their device. To take that example further, the user could then, the person on the device could then reply. You would be able to, on your server, to inspect that entire message, see where it's supposed to be going, and then actually set any sender ID that you wanted. So you might want to match it back up with one of those 50 phone numbers that you had for this user, and make sure you set the appropriate sender ID and send it back out. So you are paying for messages on both sides of the Twilio cloud. That's the same way Twilio's messaging pricing has always worked. But you just get a lot more sort of control and power than you would have just doing standard messaging in and out of the device. Should we keep moving forward?
Yeah, and moving on. Can you explain what a command is? Because I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So,
what's the difference between a command and an SMS?
So technically, there's very little. A command does run over the SMS channel. And the difference is there's no phone numbers required. So if you're getting started with Twilio's SMS product, you would need to buy a Twilio phone number, and that phone number is what you would use to send and receive messages to and from another phone on another network, like your primary cell phone, for instance, as you're building out your first application. A command uses SMS. It's just that it's more of an IoT-centric product feature, and what it does is it just sends an SMS straight down to that device, and it sends it from basically like a shortcode every single time. You can't set the from number, you can't set the to number, but on the flip side of that, you don't need to buy a phone number first to use it, and you don't need to have a phone number associated with your devices. So it's basically machine-to-machine SMS or machine-to-cloud SMS and cloud-to-machine SMS.
Okay,
and it's priced a little cheaper.
Transport for that. The transport, is that USSD we're using there for that?
No, it's SMS.
Okay, not USSD at all. Okay.
No.
Right.
There's a notion there that, like, I'm interested in getting feedback from customers that this might be a good forum, for instance, for us to introduce binary SMS, which is something we've not traditionally done in our messaging APIs, but we're filling it out right now. I mean, actually, if you were at Signal, we did a demo with commands where we used this little device here, which is called a particle electron, and we built 200 of these with light rings connected to them and put them under people's seats. And during the keynote demo, Jeff wrote some code that sent them all a command, and basically that just required on the receiving side, on running in the electron code, which is kind of Arduino-like, to receive that SMS, interpret it, and actually light up the balls based on the color that was coming in. There is also there's a reason that you might want to do this beyond just cost, which is this can be a very low energy way of doing things. You don't need to have you don't need your data connection to be active all the time. So one of the reasons that we built this feature is that as we started talking to IoT developers in particular, there's a strong desire to be able to selectively enable and disable the data connection. So I want to just receive a message, and the message itself may not actually be the important part. Like the command payload may not be important, but all it might contain is an instruction to wake up and connect to some sort of data service, like an MQTT channel or something like that, to receive richer commands or ask for richer information to be uploaded using IP.
Yeah, that all sounds very sensible, because it can be quite heavy on power to maintain a data session all the time. So using SMS or USSD that travels over the signaling channel is a much more power efficient way of doing it. So yeah, thumbs up.
Any other questions out there, by the way? This would be a good time.
Well, I want to hear a bit about the international Twilio SIM. And it's great to see it launching in US on using T-Mobile IMSIs. But I'm very, very keen to find out when and how it's going to launch internationally.
Yeah, so this is a big deal for us. I mean, we would love to be able to just launch something globally all at once. Unfortunately, you know, that can be quite difficult, and it can be useful to launch in one market first to sort of figure out the customer support implications and things like that first. Obviously, there's new strategies available to us that weren't previously available to us. Primarily, by that I mean eSIM. That allows us to potentially sort of deliver a single product that's more global. I think the strategy that we will end up taking will be one of, as I mentioned before, some combination of roaming and local deals. And so you're likely to see those local deals delivered. And you know, I'm not committing to any of this here, but you're likely to see those local deals delivered as some sort of local profile loaded on an eSIM, and hopefully that single SIM can be global. And then for the places where we're still yet to establish a local profile and a local deal, there would be some sort of, you know, you'd be able to use essentially the best roaming agreement from the closest local deal that we had. As for timing, I would love to see something later this year. This is a very new product category for us, and it's difficult at this stage to really narrow down on timing. I think once we have the US product shipped, we will look to do, you know, sort of a subsequent deal, most likely in Western Europe, and then I think after that, once we've got one or two of these under our belts, then we'll be able to very accurately predict subsequent global expansion. Right now, it's just we still have some learnings to do in terms of how our own processes enable us to ship those deals quickly.
Brilliant. Well, if you need a little bit of
a floppy answer.
Yeah, if you need a little bit of assistance, we're here. We just spent the last 7 years building a global solution with multi-IMSI SIMs. So
great. We should
we should have a chat.
Catch up at. Are you coming to Signal conference in London in September?
Yeah, I guess I'll be there.
All right. Let's get together.
But it'd be good to try out something before then, and then perhaps we can do the odd dangerous demo.
Yeah, I put myself on the line for probably the world's most dangerous demo at our Signal conference in San Francisco earlier this year, and I don't know if I want to go through that again. But then again, maybe I'm just maybe I'm a little more practiced now. So yeah, let's see if we can do that.
Is there a video of that online? If so, can we have a link to it?
Yeah, there is a video. It was actually linked to on Twilio.com. Let me see if I can on the homepage.
Yeah, I'll track it down and I'll put the links into IRC chat. Yeah, Evan put together a really amazing experience for our Signal conference. What I'd love to do is pass it over to Annie for control, and Annie can share her screen with some slides, and then we can continue the conversation.
Great.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm hoping that everybody can see my slides.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about SIP trunking. I'm the product manager for this product line, and SIP trunking launched about a year and a half ago here at Twilio, and it was really the first product where we said, let's deliver our PSTN connectivity to our users via SIP without having to involve our customers to actually write an application. So we really just said, let's remove the programmability and let's just provide the connectivity layer. And so far, it's been a great product. It's had a lot of great usage, and we've continued to enhance it over the year and a half since we launched. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So just to level set, SIP trunking, it provides PSTN connectivity from your IP communications infrastructure. So that could be either a PBX or a session border controller with endpoints behind that. And we connect you over to the PSTN. So there's really two directions of a particular trunk. When you place calls from your communications infrastructure out to the PSTN, we call that trunking termination. And when you receive calls to Twilio numbers and that we then pipe into your communications infrastructure, we call that trunking origination. So with Twilio, like anything, it's elastic, it's on the cloud, and with pay-as-you-go pricing, which mirrors all of our other product lines here at Twilio. So I want to talk about three specific areas where I believe is really where we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the trunking providers, and those are three things.
We've lost your slide.
Oh no.
No, I'm seeing it. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll keep going. So there's really three different areas. One of it is going global. The other one is simplicity, and the other one is feature reach. So let's start with the global experience. So when we say that our solution is global, we really mean that we have a global reach with local presence. And I'll explain that a little bit further. We have 7 points of presence around the world, where we have multiple local carriers interconnected into those points of presence. And from your SIP infrastructure, you're able to connect to any of these 7 regions, and we recommend you connect to the closest one for the best experience. So the best thing is probably to talk through an example of one of our customers, which is LifeSize. So LifeSize came to Twilio, and as you know, LifeSize provides video conferencing, and they said, well, I want to enable mobile phones or landlines to connect into my video conference for just the audio. And their requirements were quite simple. They're like, I just want to have a SIP connection in, and I want it to be global because I'm interested in having local phone numbers around the world for my users. And Twilio SIP trunking was really one of the best solutions for them because with a single provider, we enabled them to buy numbers around the globe and easily connect them into these global conferences. So one of my favorite quotes is this next one where the LifeSize mentions is really getting voice connectivity is like getting voice connectivity from every carrier around the world with an easy pay-as-you-go pricing model. So this next slide gives you a little bit more insight into how our infrastructure is powered. So we have 7 regions globally. Each of them has a load balancer in front of it. Each region has 3 availability zones around the world for reliance. And if we go from left to right, so let's think about you placing a call from your infrastructure out to the PSTN. So the one thing that we provide to you is we provide with you an FQDN that you're able to dial. So in this case, it's anebp.pstn.twilio.com. And that's what you're going to be pointing your SBC or PBX towards. So a call comes into that. It hits a load balancer. It finds the available application server, which then connects that call to the upstream carriers. Now, as far as upstream carriers, we definitely have over hundreds of carriers connected into the Twilio cloud, and we route based on both quality, connectivity, load, and cost as well. And then similarly, on the way back, whenever you have a Twilio phone number, the Twilio phone number is hosted by one of these carriers. A call comes in, and then we connect it into whatever your PBX FQDN is, and I'll talk a little bit about how we can do load balancing and failover scenarios there. So you configure an origination URI that's going to point to your PBX or session border controller, and you have really 2 ways of doing that. One of them is actually using an FQDN, and then we receive the call from the PSTN, we do a DNS query, and we pay attention to our array records and to figure out to which of the right IP addresses do you want us to send that call. Now, we had customers come back to us saying, well, I don't really want to have an FQDN, and I don't want to have a DNS entry for my PBX or my SBC. I want to configure IP addresses or something more precise, but I do want you to do load balancing and failover for me. So we expand this concept of an origination URI, where a customer is able to configure up to 10 origination URIs, and you can associate different priority and weights. So with that, you're able to really achieve either load balancing if you want, or even failover services. So to say, if one of my IP addresses is down, I'm able to hit my secondary IP address, or load balance between them.
Annie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are seeing the first slide. Can you go back to live and put your camera on, and then go back to the slides? Because we're just seeing the very first slide. There we go. Now we're okay.
Okay,
What
so I'll
happened here?
just, it's probably the presentation mode, so I'll
Okay,
just
go
take it
ahead,
from here.
continue then. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, thanks for letting me know. So the other thing you can do in terms of saying, well, I wanted to receive my calls from the PSEN to my infrastructure. We said, well, what if your infrastructure is completely down for whatever reason, like a huge outage, which hopefully will never happen. We have the notion of saying you have a disaster recovery URL that you're able to implement. And in this case, we would connect you to our TWIML application logic, where you would be able to replicate your infrastructure, or you would be able to do an IVR, or you would be able to handle that call in a particular way, even if your local communications infrastructure is completely down. So that's another very cool feature that a few customers are definitely leveraging from Twilio today. So then let me jump into the next area of the slides, where it's really about having SIP trunking be simple for our users. So the first step is saying, well, we're global around the world, so you're able to buy numbers globally from just a single provider. So that's a huge step in the world of trunking. Then the next thing that we do is we said is like, how can I facilitate the provisioning? So with other trunking providers, we said, I want to buy a SIP trunk. Once you determine the pricing, which all of our pricing is online, so that's another big step. Then the time to actually configure your trunk is usually in the order of weeks. I've heard stories sometimes they can expand to months. So we really said, how can we change that paradigm and facilitate it and be able to create and provision your trunk in a matter of minutes or even seconds? So the first thing that we have is our user console, and I realize that these might be a little bit hard to read because of the font size. But there's really 4 things that you do to fully configure a trunk. The first thing is you start with your general settings, so you give your trunk a name. You can enable particular features like call recording or SRTP. The next thing is you configure your termination URI. So that's what the FQDN name that you want to provide your trunk for your communications infrastructure to connect to it. You can then associate user credentials or configure IP-ACLs for authentication. The third thing is you configure your origination URI. So that's what's going to tell Twilio what is the IP address of your PBX or SBC. And then the fourth thing is you associate phone numbers with that trunk. So once you have everything configured, any call coming into that particular number is automatically going to be delivered to your communications infrastructure. So the nice thing about this is once you have your trunk configured, if you suddenly you want to add a phone number in, let's say, the UK or Italy or Spain or anywhere around the globe, you essentially just have to go into the console and add a new number to that trunk, and that's all you need to do to just get international presence for your infrastructure. Now, the next thing is you said, okay, well, that's great. What if I don't want to use the console and I want to use an API? And this isn't the one thing that Twitter is doing. So Twitter is one of our trunking customers, and they have a very similar use case where they said, well, I want to power all of my offices globally around the world for communications. But they wanted to automate all of these trunk provisions to be able to make things easier for them. So we do have an API to actually configure the trunks, and it's really quite simple. You have a snippets here on the slide for that, where essentially you configure trunks, you associate credential lists or IP-ACLs with them. On the next slide, you associate phone numbers with your particular trunk. And then you also have a usage API to be able to determine how much, to be able to look at your calls and figure out the usage that you're actually using as you go throughout the months. So then the next part of the slide deck, and this is the last area, is it's quite feature-rich in terms of what we've done, and we've augmented a lot of the features in the past year approximately. So here I just have a whole list of features, but I really want to focus on probably 4 things in this area. And I'll jump right into it. So the first one is private connectivity into Twilio. And we started to see this as a requirement for a lot of our large enterprise customers. They said, well, that's great. Having a cloud provider for my SIP trunking solution sounds interesting. It's something I want to explore. But I don't want to connect over the internet for whatever reason. It could be quality of service. It could be I'm looking for a more consistent network experience, or it simply could be I'm on my MPLS network today and I just want to use that MPLS network to connect to Twilio. So we built Twilio INTERCONNECT gateways currently in the United States, and we allow customers to connect in any of 3 ways. One of them is connecting through an MPLS network. Currently we support the Verizon MPLS network. The other option is to have a direct cross-connect into our Equinix data center facility, or simply having a VPN connectivity, which is over the internet, but a secure IPsec tunnel. So in the US, which is the first place where we launched this, and we launched this in March this year, we have 2 data centers. One of them is in Equinix in Ashburn, Virginia, and the other one is in San Jose, California. The pricing model is really quite simple. There's a connection setup fee, and then we have monthly tiered pricing, a monthly recurring charge, which is based on the tiers, and the tiers are just based on the size of the pipe that you're actually buying. So you can start off with, I believe, 1 Mbps, 10 Mbps, or 1 gigabit per second. So like I said, right now we have it deployed in the United States, and we are looking to expand our Twilio Interconnect solutions to both Asia Pac in Singapore and in Europe, potentially London or Frankfurt are the 2 data centers that we're evaluating. The next feature, and this is a fairly standard feature, but something that is definitely asked by a lot of customers, is providing E911 for SIP trunking. So this is really just powering our trunks to be able to dial 911 out of the Twilio SIP trunk. We are enabling this for the United States and Canada, but probably the most interesting thing about this feature, even though it's a very basic feature, what we did with Twilio is we kept that simple focus in terms of saying we want to make it easy for customers to configure. So we enabled this with through the console, and the API is coming soon. So customers are able to easily say, I want this particular phone number that's associated with my Twilio trunk to have this particular emergency address for whenever they dial 911. And then when the 911 call is placed, programmatically, the PSAP, which is the public safety answering point, receives that call and receives that address automatically that's associated with that particular phone call. So one customer that we powered for this is Pittsburgh Technical Institute, which is a university in Pittsburgh. What they wanted to do is essentially they had 300 students in their campus housing facilities, and they said, I love your SIP trunking solutions, but unless you have 911, this is a no-go for me. So once we developed 911 for them and for the rest of our customers, of course, what they really loved is in terms of like being able to programmatically and in a matter of minutes be able to configure 911 for each new phone number that they were configuring over the Twilio trunk. The next feature that we did was something that we call secure trunking. So this is essentially being able to secure your SIP signaling with TLS and encrypt your media, your RTP with secure RTP, SRTP over the trunk. And again, we made this simple for customers to configure. It's a general setting on the trunk where you just either say, I want to enable secure trunking on my entire trunk, or I want it disabled. And that's all you need to do, which is great. And then the last thing that we focused on was really saying, well, great, we saw our customers were using elastic SIP trunking with Twilio, but one of the areas where we saw that they were really struggling with was saying, I configure my Twilio trunk, and that part is very simple to configure, but I'm struggling with configuring some settings on my PBX or some settings on my SBC to get this to work at the beginning. So we really said, what can we do for our customers to make it easier to troubleshoot and make it easier for them to get going? So there were 3 things that we built this year. One of them is being able to download the PCAPs from our SBC edge as the call comes into a network, so customers would have better visibility into that. So that's quite simple. You go into our call logs, and there's a simple button where it's like, click to download my PCAP. So that typically helps troubleshoot. The other thing that we did is we implemented this whole testing infrastructure where we exposed our internal testing to our customers, and we allow them to place test calls in both termination directions. So there's a well-known phone number that customers can call. They receive a pre-recorded message to say, welcome, this is a test call, please record something, and then we play it back for them so that they're able to actually test the RTP stream in both directions. And then on the opposite side, being able to place a test call to one of their Twilio phone numbers and have that ring their communications infrastructure, which is the screenshot that you see here at the top right-hand corner. And then we have some like diagnosing common problems, like maybe you heard ringing but didn't hear the media, or maybe you just heard one-way audio, and we kind of give some highlights of like areas that they probably need to look into their PBX or their Twilio trunk setting to troubleshoot these things. And then the next thing that we noticed was we started to notice a lot of patterns in the types of errors that we were seeing. So we noticed a lot of customers' calls were failing because maybe their IP ACLs were wrong, or they had bad user credentials, or they were simply calling an invalid phone number. So we exposed these through our debugger alert systems to be able to say, well, if your calls are failing, we have an easy way for you to notice what type of failures are you seeing on the SIP messages without having to download and deep dive into the PCAPs. And that's the screenshot that you see on the bottom right, to be able to say, well, you're getting these failures, these are the times that you're getting them. And then actually, if you click on those links, you're able to see the SIP message itself to be able to do further troubleshooting if you need to. So that's what kept us busy for the rest of the year with zip trunking. It is a product that we're going to continue to evolve. There's a lot of enhancements that we're planning to do to it. So definitely more to come over the next year. And if you have any questions, either feel free to contact me or my colleague Tony. His email address is on the slide that you can see right now. So I think that pretty much wraps up our content for today.
Yeah, Annie, I've got a quick question. On your SIP trunks, what codecs do you support, and in particular, do you support AMR narrowband, AMR wideband, and Opus?
Yeah, so today we only support G711 MuLa. We are planning to expand our codec list. That's sort of like our focus for the one of our focuses for the next year. We're planning to expand one less interesting codec but highly demanded one is G729. And then we are thinking about supporting an Opus zip trunk as well.
Okay, I have a question too. And by the way, Annie, you can put your camera back on if you would like to. And this is for whoever wants to answer it. I've had a Twilio account for years and years and years, but when I first opened the account, I think there was like a $50 credit or 20 or something. What's the current status if people want to mess around with various services? I mean, obviously we've come a long, long way. Maybe Billy, you'd be the one to answer this. I don't know. What's the status if people want to start developing? What's the developer account arrangement?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we expose that varies by product, but for the most part, we try to make it free to get up and going and get started. So if you sign up for Twilio today, for example, you'll receive some credit that allows you to send some voice calls and SMS calls free of charge. For newer products, for example, for our IP chat product, IP messaging, it doesn't charge you for development usage. It only charges you once you start to scale your usage. And for like our newer products, like Notify, is just completely free to use while it's in developer preview. So for the most part, like all of our products, I'm trying to think if there's exceptions, but in order to get going on the platform, you can actually build and develop and test it out for the most part free of charge. I think that's true across our product suite, but there may be a few instances where that's not the case, but for the most part you can get started developing.
And I'm sure if people are excited about a particular usage, they can contact you and through the site.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any other questions out there from somebody besides James? But of course, James could ask the question if nobody else has any. Quick one, and I don't know who could feel this, but I have used Uber occasionally in Europe, and Uber makes extensive use of SMS, obviously. Now, were they going through you? Are they using Twilio worldwide? Do you know, or was that just in the United States?
Yeah, they use us globally. The exact details of every location of what all of our customers use is we don't tend to share that type of information, but yes, many of our customers. In Uber in particular, they started with us when they were very small, and of course, as they scaled, one of the things Twilio allowed them to do was to expand to more regions globally. So many of our customers enjoy that privilege that when they want to launch globally, we have a global super network of interconnected carriers, and so that makes it easy to scale in that sense.
Now, I haven't done this yet, but I live in a small city here in France, and there are already 3 food delivery services here. I know that's common in the U.S., but my point being that I'm pretty sure that this stuff also functions with a lot of SMS back of, confirming your order, and your guy's going to be there in 20 minutes with your hamburger and all that kind of thing. So there's exciting times we're living in, and I really, again, congratulations. I think you came in at a long time ago, really, and have built this foundation of services, and it's pretty exciting stuff. Looking for if there's any questions. There's some kind of unrelated stuff here. I don't see any really Twilio. Go ahead, Michael.
Maybe I have a question. Um, Maybe if one of you has a comment, I gather that you guys are engaged a lot in various people's implementation of SMS-based two-factor authentication. Do you see that being endangered by some sort of recent exposés on SS7 vulnerabilities?
We did not. So we expose 2FA in a few different ways. So last year we made an acquisition of Authy, and so we tend to recommend using Authy for two-factor authentication, and those guys are really our security experts. So we didn't invite them to the call today to really comment on specific vulnerabilities, but it's an interesting question. You can hit them up on Twitter, or maybe we can do a follow-up show and have our Authy crew talk specifically about that product. But we do have customers that do two-factor authentication, just building on top of our raw programmable SMS product. And then what we tend to recommend is to use Authy as your two-factor solution, because it just goes beyond SMS. It's what we call a use case API. We saw customers over and over and over again building two-factor authentication and doing the same things over and over and over again. And it's very, very hard, as we all know, to do security. So Authy makes that simple and, again, exposes it as a developer tool. And so we're very proud to have that in our tool suite.
Okay, so it's a strong alternative then.
Okay, I just want to be sure to thank Annie. Thank you, Annie, for joining us. It was great to have you for the first time. Hope we'll see you again.
My pleasure.
Okay. Evan, thank you for joining us. And again, hope we'll see you again, too.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and Billy, I have no doubt that we'll be seeing you again. So thanks for organizing this, Billy.
Yeah, Randy, tons of fun. Very happy to be back on the VUC and with some of my colleagues, and just enjoyed chatting with everyone today.
Great to see you all. And thanks to everybody who participates in this thing. You know that we're on VUC.me. And there will be a recorded announcement after I click the Stop Broadcast button, which is right about this minute.